This is where the fun begins.
The fate of the galaxy is now in your hands. With the new LEGO Star Wars Slave One, you can load Captain Solo, arm your weapon systems, man the cockpit, and take off with the most feared ship in the galaxy. But watch out for rebel ships. No matter the enemy, no matter the firepower, you control the action. With the new LEGO Star Wars collection.
Woo! And hello, everyone, and good morning, and welcome to Talking EU with Stone Loki. I say Lukey, but Loki, sorry. Speech. It wasn't, I haven't been up since 5 in the morning, and I am all like amped up on coffee. So hello, everyone, and good morning, Stone Loki. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, OG?
I am doing good. Like I said, I'm very caffeinated right now. Yeah, and we had a nice little interesting conversation before we went live here regarding Slave One, and it's officially now being mentioned as Fire Spray Gunship. That was confirmed, like Tamara stated in his interview, that that's what they're going to start calling it. They are totally just doing away with Slave One without the official announcement, just like they said with Lego. It's an unofficial announcement, and it's just confirmed today. So that's why I did the Lego Slave One commercial. So there's my little wrap.
You were telling me stuff I didn't even know about, like the fact that Django had been a slave and that he was the only one to escape. And I know in some of the earlier EU books, they talked about a slave system that it had to where it could be like remote controlled. So yeah. I always thought that's why it was called Slave One, because he could remote control it using a slave system, which was illegal in the Star Wars universe. It was illegal to have that modification, kind of like the way Han Solo modified the Falcon with a legal system. So did Boba Fett, but there's more to that story, obviously, in the EU than what anybody knows about.
Yeah, and I basically paraphrased or like shortened the story up for you. So it's a very compelling, unique story because, we always see, Django. Django was a journeyman protector. He was a youngling founded adoptive Mandalorian as a young boy from Concord Dawn, and Concord Dawn is basically officially a part of the Mandalore system as well. So there's a lot of depth of story in there. And then if you haven't heard, like Din Djarin was the one that was given Jango Fett's origin story as becoming a Mandalorian, if you haven't noticed that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What they borrow, they cherry pick. I hate that they do that now. They cherry pick everything, and they're like, oh, well, we'll use this, or we'll use this, or we'll have this character take up this story from the EU when they said nothing in the EU ever happened. They
exactly.
Completely blanked it out.
Source material, but let's digress. Let's move on from this topic here, and I'm going to go ahead and say hello to the chat, and then we'll get this party started if it hasn't felt like we didn't start it already. So Miss Martin uses hello with her customary handshake or wave, and Rose, hello to you. And she is a channel member, and Lady Toriel as well. Welcome and good morning. And I know this isn't coffee chat, but it is 9 a.m. here where I live at. So if you're enjoying coffee or beverage this morning or afternoon, let me know what you're enjoying. Like I said, I'm drinking a cappuccino right now. So I am nice and buzzed up a little bit, and I am not apologizing at all. It feels great.
Oh yeah, I got a Coke here. I'm drinking a Coca-Cola.
Nice. And then morning OG and Loki here for a while, then bed. Yes. Thank you for hanging out with us. And GB Loki. This is why I was saying Loki earlier, is because I read his name and was going to say Loki, and I ended up saying Loki. So good morning to you. And then Dead Man Walking 55, or Dad. I always say Dead Man. It's like instinctively from Green Mile. Dead Man Walking.
I do it too. Yeah. I do it too. Good morning, Dad Man.
Yes, good morning to you. And let's see who else is popping in. Zaggerot315, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. And Stig is not with us today, but he will be with us tomorrow for Coffee Chat. And we are continuing Blood Ties, a story of Boba Fett. And it began with how his father trained him to overcome fear by looking it straight in the face. And so we're continuing that story in honor of the true original Boba Fett. So I had that Lego Slave 1. Woo, good. Do you still have it? Because you said you had. What happened to it? I am curious now. And let's see here. Shane Nolan, good morning to you. And let's see here. We have Holocron Library Fox. Good morning. Amped Up Alora. Hell chat. Good morning. You got Alora here all caffeinated up. Caffeinated Alora. Decar. Sorry. I know there's like a little apostrophe at the end of the E, so sorry if I butchered that. Cannot wait for your chat in the modified YT13. You mean the Falcon? And that's the thing. Okay, let's go back to it. Ooh, Thrawn, look at that. Anyways, the rich Thrawn too. Love the eyes. That's the thing. So someone was trying to explain away. Well, he was just telling her the name of the model, the classification of the ship, because she may not understood what ship that was. And I'm like, that still doesn't make sense, because he'd say, oh yes, my fire spray. Because if you name your ship out of endearment, or it was named out of endearment or for a reason, and then you're going to first say the name.
That's right.
Yeah. And then you will say, oh, well, this is a blah, blah, blah. And then you'll tell what the model of the ship is, right? So right. Usually the name of the endearment name that you name, like the Falcon, for example, will be named first.
Yeah, you never heard Lando call his ship a blah, blah, blah luxury liner. He called it the Lady Luck. That was the name of the ship, was the Lady Luck.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it doesn't make sense for someone to really not know the name of a ship, especially if you work in the underworld as a smuggler or what have you. Usually people are well versed in the ships because they have to do with different type of ships. And so that really didn't make sense either. So, I mean, it is what it is. People are going to explain away this, and it's going to still be the name is still going to be changed. So they can still continue. Just, that's what you call, like, you're down the river of denial, basically. And Darkwing Duck, good morning as well. Chris, hello. Fire spray. They have medication to clear that up these days. Mm-hmm. I've said that before. It sounds like an STD. I'm so sorry I went there, but that's just how it sounds. All right. So I think I caught everybody. I think and look, we have here. Hello. Good morning to you. Yeah. And then GB, I don't have that one still, unfortunately, but I got the 20th anniversary one for my birthday a couple years ago before the name changed. Awesome. And then please hit the like button as well. All right. So I was interviewed by Stone Loki, and before the interview took place on his channel, like a month ago, I think it was, or maybe a month and a half ago. We were talking about Star Wars behind the scenes, and even over on his show when he interviewed me, and I was like, man, I got to bring him on for Talking EU and interview him. So this is what we're doing. So I have my first question for you. What got you into Star Wars?
Watching the movies. The earliest movie memory I have is watching Return of the Jedi in the theaters. And yes, I was like a little kid, so I was jumping up and down when the Ewoks came out, I was like, yeah, whoop, 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 whoop. And that was the coolest thing, because they were kicking butt and taking names. But that's the first movie I remember going to the theater and seeing is Return of the Jedi.
Oh, wow.
Getting to see that in theaters, my parents trying to grab me, me jumping up and down on my seat because of the Ewoks. I just thought that, that was the coolest thing in the world. And watching them over the years, the first Christmas I ever remember, getting the Ewok playset, the Ewok Village.
Mm-hmm.
And it had the little bag that had the rocks in it that you could drop, and it had traps and little secret passageways. And I remember waking up and that being made. My dad had stayed up like half the night putting that together and making that. My cousins had to build their own, and I was like, hey, I'm already playing with mine, and you're over there building yours, ha ha, suckers. And those memories are gold. They're like gold.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So because you're a child, of course you're like, oh, Ewoks, these warrior teddy bears, So what do you think about them now? I'm curious. Did you mind about them?
I still don't have a problem with them. There are people that are like, oh, little teddy bears and all this stuff. I always liked them. I always thought they were cool. I was like, well, these are I like the Ewok movies. I don't know why. It may be because they touched me so much in childhood that I never was like, oh, they ruined the movie or anything like that. They were just part of the movie. That's Endor. You're on Endor, and these little creatures are there, and the thing with 3PO, Master Luke, help me, I'm flying, oh no, and they're all like, worshiping 3PO. I thought that was great. I always thought that was great.
Yeah, and I think you might have heard this. It originally was supposed to be Wookiees. By George, and then he decided to change the focus to these little misunderstood little bear creatures species, right? And I think that it makes it more believable to have changed it because the Empire went over there and they took the Death Star there to finish construction out of the way where no one would go, and so they thought that the Ewoks were just harmless, really, and so. Yeah, if it was Wookiees, then that wouldn't have happened because the Wookiees would have fought back.
And don't forget, Ewoks eat people.
Right.
They were all set up and ready to cook Han and eat him.
Yeah.
These are not nice little creatures. They may be funny, but they are not nice little creatures.
Yeah. And then Soul Assassin says, did little Loki watch Ewok cartoon?
Yes, I did watch the Ewok cartoon when I was a kid. Yes.
That's me too. I remember that. I used to love watching that when I was a child as well. And so that brings back memories for me. And this interview is not necessarily about me. It's about you. But, for me, I started off in my journey with Star Wars with Empire Strikes Back. But that was movie wise. Well, actually in the drive-in theaters. So before we went, my family was like, you need to watch the first one. So they had the VHS. And so we watched that first. And then we went into the drive-in theater and got to watch Empire Strikes Back. So that's how I was introduced. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with drive-in theaters anymore, but those were friggin' the bomb.
Yes. Oh, you got the little radio thing you put up next to your, and yes, absolutely.
Yes, and like you got the popcorn. You can they only allow so many people per carload, so sometimes stuffing people in the trunks, and they never checked. And then you had your picnic, your barbecue, or your fried chicken or whatever. I mean, it was. Then you can grab your blankets, and if you had a truck or not, you would either put the blanket on top of the hood or in the bed of the truck, and it was fun. I just moved last year from Branson back to Texas, but there was a little 50s diner, and they didn't have this pre-pandemic, but after the pandemic started, what they started doing was they put up a screen behind the 50s diner, and you just pulled up and back, you called, made your order, turned your radio station to a certain dial, and you could watch a drive-in movie and wait for your food. Yeah. Oh my God. And those are the best. I mean, the kids these days are missing out on total freedom. Just imagine if we still had all the drive-in theaters like we did growing up today. They would have been shut down. They'd have all been out. Or maybe not. Maybe they would have been used because, it's outdoors. So maybe they would have boomed.
Yep. They would have boomed. They would have boomed big time because you're in your own car. Mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about being around anybody else but the people in your own car. You get them to bring in your food. You get your food, you pay, whatever. You don't even have to change hands. You could do it all online, and they just bring you your food, and bam, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So maybe that would have been a lot better because I think there was a few theaters as I watched over the lockdowns that they set up a screen outside and they did a drive-in in their own parking lot. I did see a few theaters like that. Not in California, because God forbid California, make anything these days. All right. So yeah, so that's what, how I started. I started with the middle. You started with the last. So what is your favorite Star Wars movie overall and why?
Empire. And I know that's a cliche because so many people love Empire. I think Empire is the perfect Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
They had to hide. They even hid it from Mark Hamill. The famous scene we all know, I am your father, was
not Luke, I am your father. Remember how people misunderstood that in the commercials and stuff? Luke, I am your father.
It was Obi-Wan killed your father. That's what he thought was Obi-Wan killed your father. And it was like things like that, finding out things like that, how hard they worked on that movie to get that movie done. The fact that they almost had to give the rights to the toys. George Lucas almost had to give the rights to the toys away to get it finished being made. It's to me, it's the perfect Star Wars movie. Everything is high stakes. Han, the scene with Han and Leia is effing beautiful. I love you. I know. He doesn't hear you. Yeah. I know you do. And it's perfect. It's perfect. The tension between them. It's like we got a badass way to incorporate this love story between Han and Leia, and you don't even mind. You don't care that it's there because all this stuff's going on, and it's perfect.
Yes. Yeah, I loved it, but that's not my favorite one. Mine was Return of the Jedi. I wanted the few. Well, I want to say the few because I met a lot of people, but it is Empire Strikes Back is the one that is, the highly loved one out of all of Star Wars.
It is.
I noticed that everybody will say that first, and I think because it showed such significant growth between the characters, all of them, and then it was so open-ended because we're like, okay, what's going to happen now with Han? Where are they going to go? So it created anticipation.
Luke lost.
Right. Our hero lost. And I was watching the interview with Joseph Campbell at Skywalker Ranch. And he talks all about that. And he talks about how, Luke, even though he has the hero's journey, he is the hero that loses all the time. And people can relate to that. And, and he has so much death. I think I'm going to do a video on that interview with Joseph Campbell at Skywalker Ranch because it was phenomenal. So
definitely.
Exactly. All right. And so now, what is your favorite PT movie and why?
Oh man, Attack of the Clones.
Oh, okay.
I know that's not a popular answer.
I think it's underrated. Really, I do, because people give it such harsh criticism because of, like the push and pull of the love romantic scenes with Padme.
Yeah.
And I think they expected Anakin to be the sly guy, but he's not supposed to be.
No, and and this is why I'm saying Attack of the Clones. Seeing that in a theater, I went and saw it in IMAX night of release. Attack of the Clones in IMAX, and I have never been in a theater that exploded the way that one did.
Yeah,
and it was the scene with Dooku and Yoda. And it was like everybody was on the edge of their seat and they do their little force battle, right? When he opens his cloak and pulls his lightsaber to his hand, everyone in that theater was on their feet. Scream. Right. Popcorn's flying everywhere. Drinks are getting knocked on the floor and splashing. The entire theater exploded. And I'd never been around that much energy in a movie before, ever.
Yeah.
So while I know sand is coarse and rough and it gets everywhere, that's George. I'm sorry, that is George. If George didn't want that in his movie, it wouldn't have been in the movie. He would have been no. We got to completely redo that. You can't blame the actor for that. That is George. That's on him.
Yeah, and what I will say, and this is not like I'm not defending George either, but I'm just putting common sense in this. Anakin's not supposed to be a smooth talker. He's supposed to be very, very awkward.
Yes.
And if you're very awkward in front of a person, a lady or a man that you are just very infatuated with, falling in love with, you aren't gonna say the exact right words or sentiments to them, especially if you don't know about courting anybody, which Jedi normally don't.
Nope. And there's a part at the very beginning of the movie where Anakin is talking to Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And Anakin's like, you fell into that nest of Gundats, Master, and I saved you. And Obi-Wan's like, oh, yes, right? Obi-Wan was never in trouble. Obi-Wan was never in trouble. He let his apprentice come to the rescue to test his abilities. Yeah. That is what Obi-Wan was always doing. I want Anakin to come into his own. I don't want him to feel like I'm babying him, but I want him to feel strong in the Force, and I want him to show what he can do. And by coming in and feeling like he saved Obi-Wan, I rescued you. Oh, yes, right. I forgot about that. It's not about Obi-Wan being in trouble. It's about Anakin feeling like he can use his power and use the Force and be the best that he can be. Obi-Wan is training him. That is Obi-Wan's job. Right. And that's what he's doing. And Anakin doesn't even realize that. He's so up on himself and I'm the greatest ever that he doesn't even get it. It's beautiful. There's all kinds of little beautiful nuggets in that movie that are like that. And of course, I loved seeing Jango and Bubba. It's like, Bubba, get on board. I absolutely loved it. I loved all that.
Yeah, exactly. And then back to Yoda. Okay, so we seen him in the OT. We know that he was basically the Grand Master, the one who overseeing the whole order, right? And so we got to see him as himself in exile, where he's, he atoned a little bit. He prepared to train Luke. He prepared for what's to come. We know exactly what the exile is about. So we knew, because he's a Jedi, at one time he was very skilled with wielding his lightsaber. So once we got to that moment and we got to see him summon his lightsaber from his side and face down Dooku, which he trained, which was once his apprentice, right? Then and see how well they were like at each other with the Force and the dueling and stuff like that. We got to see Yoda in action. I think that was something people were longing for a very long time, to see exactly how this little being that we don't even know about the species, but this wizened creature that helped Luke rebuild the New Order, or sent Luke on his journey to rebuild the New Order, how he was going to handle combat, because all Jedi train for combat, because that's what they do. They try to find resolution with peace and stuff. They try not to fight until it's necessary, but they did train for it because that's who they are, right? So seeing him finally in action and how they were going to do that was phenomenal. And I disagree with a lot of people saying that, that was just a lot of stunts, whirling and twirling. We got to see the Jedi in their prime.
Yoda's got a battle cry. Yoda has a battle cry. It's not just, I'm going to silently, he's like, and you're like, damn.
Right.
Beautiful. It was beautiful.
Exactly. And so, like I said, Attack of the Clones is underrated. I know people kind of got got turned off with some of the dialogue, especially with Anakin and Padme. And I think it was done purposefully. I think, like I said, I'm not defending George. He could have, made it a little bit better, but he needed Anakin to be awkward, right? He needed him to be really, really awkward. And sometimes that doesn't translate with the type of script you give him. Sometimes you do need to tweak the script up a little bit more, give it a little bit more power. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where George failed a little bit on that, even though Anakin or Hayden delivered the awkwardness and all that other stuff. He did do with it. So
you're talking about a kid that is raised like a monk. And he is. He's always being overlooked. Someone's always there watching him. Someone's always there judging him on his abilities. And then sly old Palpatine's like, well, we can send Padme off. Master Obi-Wan. Oh yes, we can separate Obi-Wan and Anakin can go with Padme. That's a wonderful idea. And Yoda's like, like looking at Palpatine like, I don't like you, but I sense no evil in you, but I still don't like you.
Right. And we knew, like, once you get privy to who Palpatine is, like, if you didn't know or whatever, or what's going on, we knew that he manipulated all sides of the war. He manipulated the Jedi as well to even have Anakin go off and be Padme's bodyguard.
Yeah, and if any of you haven't read the book, I think it's Darth Plagueis is the name of the book. Yes,
Yeah.
Star Wars Darth Plagueis. Read Darth Plagueis, and you will learn so much about Palpatine and how. Oh, it's good. It's so good.
I don't think the new owners will even come close to that. I
No.
don't think so. Not whatsoever. All right, so moving on. We already know that your favorite OT movie is Empire Strikes Back. So, and you basically told why. Is there anything else you want to add to that about Empire Strikes Back?
To me, it's just perfect. Like I said before, it's the perfect Star Wars. I love the relationship with Han and Leia. I love Yoda and Luke doing their thing. Everybody's got like a thing that they're doing in Empire, and it's important. You know, whether it's Boba Fett chasing Han, whether it's Han and Leia, whether it's meeting Lando. Well, what have we here? Hello, princess. I'm going to kiss your hand because I love everything, even toasters. I love toasters. Because, here in about 30 years, they're going to make me pan and I can just do everything.
Oh, God.
Poor Lando. Poor Lando. Well, what have we here? You're not a droid, but So yeah, it's
I gotta clip that. And put it in that scene. Oh my God, that's excellent. But yeah, Lando, I mean, he, like I said before, and I'll say it again, is that every single character that's being reintroduced, whether it's a movie one or not, they're secondhand now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm calling them, secondhand characters, secondhand stories, because we already got the introduction of them and how well they're fleshed out. Like, we know that Lando got married. We know that, he eventually in his older life had a son. And then he was not, even though he did have some droids that sound like a sexy woman kind of deal in the EU, he wasn't banging them.
Oh, no.
No, it was just for the sound, because he liked the sound of the sexy women voice and stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe he was too maybe he was too masculine, toxic masculinity that they had to make him more pan. I don't know. I don't understand the reason for that, other than, wanting inclusivity with the, our LGBT community, I guess you can say. But why don't you just create your own new character instead of reinventing one that's already been invented and fleshed out?
Because they have to change. They have to change our perception of how we feel about that character. It's not. They have to make it a more flawed, more relatable, more whatever their idea is of how they have to change it. That's what they're going to do, because they want you to love what they're making more than what you loved before. Right. Everything that came before doesn't matter. If you haven't figured that out from Disney Star Wars yet.
Oh, no. I've been told that many times. I'm an EU elitist, and it's gone. Get over it. Cry more. It goes on and on and on. And you know what? Call me names. I don't care. It's not going to change my love of Star Wars. It's not going to change my love of the original Star Wars, George Lucas era. Yeah, I do commend scenes and stuff that look great or whatever in the new lore, but for me, my heart stays with the original, because that's not a secondhand story. That's the original story.
Yes.
So, and if people don't like it, that's fine. Go and love what you love. I'm not telling you otherwise. So there's my rant again. Let's get back to this. All right. So what got you into the EU, since we're talking EU now?
Wow. Okay. So it was summer 91, 92, somewhere around there. I went to the library. Of all things, I had nothing to do. I was like 11, 12 years old. I had nothing to do over the summer that year. And I found Heir to the Empire. And I was hooked. I was hooked. I started looking for more and more. And pretty much all I could find were like a couple of books. I think I got Splinter of the Mind's Eye. A couple of the older novels before the EU really kicked off.
Yeah.
And then as time went on, I, of course, Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, Dark Jedi, Dark Saber, all these books were just the Truce of Bakura. All these books just kept coming and coming. Dark Apprentice, Champions of the Force, The Crystal Star. And I just kept getting them. And finally, me and my dad were going back and forth with the books, and he signed us up for this sci-fi book club. And it's one of those things where they mail you, a book. They mail you, you get to pick a couple of books and they mail you a book. And I started getting the hardbacks of the EU books. And now those are the ones we would order. And we would both get one because we'd both want to read it at the same time. It wasn't enough that we'd have one of the books no, we had to get two. So that carried on all the way until Disney bought Star Wars. And I think it was the last series I was reading was the one where they find out the Sith have a homeworld. There's a whole homeworld of Sith. I can't remember what exactly that story, that series was called.
Which one?
It was the series with the what's her name? The monster. Oh God, the chick that devours Jedi. The mother of the Force. I can't remember what they called her.
Thinking of Abeloth?
Abeloth, yes, Abeloth.
Yeah, okay, yeah, she's the one that embodied, took over their bodies to survive and stuff, and give her more power, energy. I guess you can say, if that's how you want to say it or imply it. Yeah,
and that was pretty much the last series that I bought from getting on hardback. Now I do have some of the Thrawn books because I'm a Timothy Zahn nut. I love Zahn. I love what Zahn did. Zahn brought in Mara Jade. Zahn brought in all these characters. But I don't like them as much as the stuff he wrote before.
Yeah, I think Zahn is a good writer, right? His phenomenal trilogy, of course, was Heir to the Empire, or the Thrawn trilogy. Or before it was called Thrawn trilogy, it was called Empire trilogy. And that's what helped seal in the deal for Lucasfilm to make the EU into one saga, basically in canon with the movies, because of the popularity, because they realized that people are responding to the novels just as much as they are to the movies, right? And so in that time frame, around that time frame, is when they sent out the statement in Insider, making it official, making the EU official. And so that was the breakthrough trilogy. And then after that, they started paying, they still paid attention to continuity and stuff like that. But then that's when it started becoming official. And that's when they started making everything more in line with each other. And then if there's anything that needs to be retconned or corrected, then they started doing all of that stuff to make it one coherent story from the movies. And so Zahn really opened up that door. I really like The Hand of Thrawn, but the duology, but his first little series, his trilogy, is the one that really set everything in stone.
I really love Outbound Flight too. I thought Outbound Flight was a really great book.
Yeah. What did you read? What do you call it? Survivor's Quest?
Yep. And the other one, there's another one connected to that too.
There is Alliance, I think it's called.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so he did get a few, and I think he did have one short story, but I'm not sure. I haven't fully read through all of the short stories, so I'm not too for sure on that. But
his books on Mara Jade, just Mara Jade, there's a scene in Alliance. I think it's Alliance, where these 5 stormtroopers walk into this police station and they own it like a boss.
Yeah. Oh, it's called Allegiance. I'm sorry.
Allegiance.
Not like
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. I'm like, that didn't sound right. Yeah. Sorry.
That is, I love the way he wrote that. I mean, it is one of the most kick-ass descriptions of a scene in a Star Wars book you will ever read, when these 5 elite stormtroopers walk into this police station and take everyone out. They're like, we are here. You're going to surrender to us now. And they laugh and then they just take them down. They're like, no more. No F's given. We're going to take you out and we're going to take you down and we're going to give the city back to the people. And you're like, this is what the stormtroopers should have been.
Yeah.
We go in, we take out corruption, and then we give it back to the people and we're gone. See you. That's what stormtroopers should have been.
Yeah, and that's what they handed judgment, basically, is what they called themselves after they defected. But that's what they realized, that what they stood for wasn't really their actions.
That's right.
Yeah, and so that was very compelling. And if Disney could have done a story like that with Finn,
oh man,
imagine there was so much possibilities they could have done with Finn instead of he's just the janitor. And I feel so sorry for Disney Star Wars fans that they didn't get any excellent defecting type stormtrooper stories like they should have.
No. Imagine if Finn would have been this elite badass that defected, that said, I can't abide by this anymore. I cannot in good conscience do this anymore, and defects to the rebels and helps them. Well, it wasn't even the rebels then. It was whatever Disney called them.
Yeah.
Imagine that. This badass, like, Navy SEAL stormtrooper that defects and is like, no, I'm going to fight for you. And this is how they do things. And being that information, no, this is how they're going to come in. They're going to come in just like this. They're going to try and take us out like this. This is how we have to defend ourselves. That would have been badass. I would have loved to see that. And I there were so many rumors when episode 7 came out that he was like Mace Windu's son or grandson or this or that or whatever. It would have been really, really cool to see his character growth becoming a Jedi.
Yeah.
And learning that this way that I've been taught, that this just death is wrong. I'm here to fight. I'm here to fight. I'm here to fight. And they did that in the EU with characters. There was a guy that
Kyle Katarn. I was going to ask you. That's exactly like he was almost a knockoff of Kyle Katarn. Whether not race wise, but almost like the story wise, where he defected. He realized that he was fighting for the wrong side. They hinted that he was going to be a Jedi because in the past we knew that mainly to ignite a lightsaber, you have to have some kind of force ability, right? And so they had him on the poster with a lightsaber. That's right.
They had, and I had all 3 posters. I had his poster, Han's poster. He held it up over his face, his gun up over his face. And then you had Rey, who had her staff. She didn't have a lightsaber. She had a staff, and Finn's holding the lightsaber. And it's all a bunch of muckamagoo about, look, we subverted your expectations.
Right. And then since then, people have been going downhill with their perception of Star Wars. But let's return back to George Lucas's era. So first of all, Soul Assassin says, enjoying the stream, please consider becoming a channel member. Yes. And then this last channel member drawing that I had for a free copy of my painting for Son of Kifu, basically it was Magnino Alex. And so I'm reaching out to him. He will receive a copy of that painting. And this one right here this is just my sketch drawing. I haven't put it down on canvas yet. So I'm doing the classical Boba Fett. My series I'm doing basically is with their planet of origin behind them, but I'm not going to put Camino. I'm going to put Slave One.
Okay.
Yeah. So that basically was always his home. So this is just my idea sketch on how I want him on there. And then I'll figure out how I'm going to do Slave One in the background. And so this will be a next one. So starting probably next month, February, I'll begin the campaign for channel members. So if you haven't became a channel member yet, go ahead and become one if you can. Your support is greatly appreciated. And I will also need to find a clever name to name this painting that I'm doing. So in honor of the true Boba Fett. So the original Boba Fett. So what is your favorite EU novel? I know it's kind of hard.
Oh, man.
because you have the Knights of the Old Republic era, then you have the PT era, then you have the classical or dark times era, and then you go into the New Republic, and then you go into New Jedi Order, and then Legacy. So so there's so much options. They've expanded the EU so well with such a quite like 25,000 years of history in the Star Wars lore. So there's a lot to choose from. So no pressure.
Okay, so we'll go down the short list. Okay. Old Republic, it's going to be Rule of Two. Okay. Pre-Clone Wars, it's going to be Darth Plagueis. It's got to be Clone Wars era Outbound Flight. The OG, it's got to be Allegiance. Okay. After Jedi, it's going to be the Thrawn trilogy. Into the New Jedi Order, man, that's where I'm like, oh, because there's so many good
stories. Yeah,
there's so many good books, and so on. It's like the Yuzon Bong War. After the Yuzon Bong War, you get into the Force books. I hated seeing Mara die. That killed me. Aww. That was so hard. Thinking Luke was dead was worse than that.
Oh God! And Leia's response was so
yes. He's gone, and Han's like, "What? Luke's gone? What?" And you're like, "Oh my God! If Leia felt it, he's got to be dead."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I threw the book across the room, and I was like, "Fuck you!" No, I'm sorry. I don't know if I could say F word. I'm sorry, but that's exactly.
I already passed on my own stream. You're fine.
I threw the book and F-bombed it, and I let it sit there, and I was like, "No, there's no way. There's no way." And I go over there and I pick up the book, and of course, Ben had taught him how to make himself microscopic in the Force, so nobody could feel him. So when Leia felt that, she really felt him almost like blink out of existence in the Force. He's gone. I can't feel him, and it's just like, no. But it was all a trick. It was all a trick.
Ben can feel him. Only Ben Skywalker, his son.
Yeah,
that was such a great control in the Force. And Jason, our Darth Caedus, was like, "You're lying to me." That ruse was something I heard, when the stars were young or whatever, kind of deal. And, and just all of that, because again, we had Caedus, who was also prideful, even though his story wasn't similar to his grandfather's, they were similar ideas.
What did you think about, I know you're interviewing me, but what did you think about him going back in time and kind of like meeting Vader? Where did you go wrong, Jason, going back and time walking through the Force and actually getting to meet Darth Vader?
All right, so the flow walk.
Yes.
He really didn't interact, so I was fine with that. Because we always know if you interfere with the future or the past, the Force will eventually course correct itself, but then it also has hard reproduction or hard things for the future. So with that, I thought that was intriguing. I thought that was a more tasteful way to like having someone visit the past or the future without having to fully manipulate anything or fully change things, because then we understood that, of course, you can't, if you manipulate, you're going to have repercussions for it, but then the course, the Force corrects itself. And unlike the world between worlds kind of thing that Filoni did, I thought that leaves for more manipulation than the flow walk did. But I do understand how people may hate both of them, and maybe people didn't care for a flow walk in general. So I think that the writers and the story group, or the people who overseen the continuity in the past, made sure that there wasn't a way for that flow walking Force ability to be manipulated.
Yeah.
And so I think that was artistically done in a sense, more so than World Between Worlds, if you want to compare the two.
Yep. I know. I completely agree. I thought it was fine. I thought it was tasteful. I know some people had a problem with it, but it was like, where did you go wrong, Vader? Where did you go wrong, Grandpa?
Yeah, and just to see him like realize that he slaughtered for the name of love and survival, like saving Padme, that really hit Jason hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. And then Chaos Man says, Flow Walk is more like observing the past, correct, and not altering the timeline, unlike we've seen in Rebels and the World Between Worlds. Exactly. And that's what I was going to, is like, you're observing. You can't really manipulate. You can't really get involved, because there's repercussions about that. And that's even explained to Harry, and so we have that. So, but that was that right there. And we, it's something that he used on his hiatus and I wish we'd have got stories on his hiatus.
Oh yeah. Cause you hear things like, oh, he went and trained with these people, or, oh, he went and learned this from, yes. God, I wish we had gotten, no, I completely agree. And his relationship, because like Granddad, he had a secret lover and they had a child. And nobody knows about it because it's all got to be kept secret.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And he had to keep it secret from everybody, which I didn't understand exactly. But no, actually, I did understand because of her being Hapen royalty.
Yep.
I did understand that. So even, if it was circumstances weren't the way they were, do you think that if they told about their affair and the child and their love for each other, do you think it might have changed the course for Cadus, or do you think that he was always, since the new Jedi Order, he was destined to become Darth Cadus?
I think that if he had had his daughter in his life all the time, that would have pulled him back from going down the road. Because, he can say, oh, I'm doing all this for you. I'm doing all this for you. He doesn't spend every day with that little girl. He doesn't see her every day. He doesn't have that in his life. And I think if just like Anakin, if Anakin had held Luke and Leia, I don't think he ever would have killed those younglings. Ever. Yeah,
and if he was honest, despite him, despite knowing that he would be maybe kicked out of the order, you never know. You don't know until you try, right? They always say don't assume until you
well, exceptions had been made in the past. They were very clear that there were Jedi that had been allowed to be married. And Anakin was so important. He's the chosen one. Right. So important to the council. I don't think they would have told him no. I really think Yoda would have warned him, but said, if this is the path you choose to go down, I'm not going to object to it. Right. Exactly. I really think they would have let him. And if he'd have just been honest and not hiding and no secrets, and a lot of this wouldn't have happened. A lot of what happened in the prequels happened because of secrets and not being honest. He wasn't honest with Obi-Wan. He wasn't honest with the council. Palpatine, I almost said Dooku. Palpatine was able to worm his way in there because it was someone Anakin felt he could talk to and be honest with. Exactly. And then so he used that for his manipulation of Anakin. That's right. Perfectly well done. Okay, so let's go back to Cadus. So even if, and we're going into what ifs now, and this is what we do as fans, right? We go into what ifs, like what if this happened? Would this still happen? So if Tenel and Jason didn't have to keep their affair and their child secret because of her status as a Hapen queen, and he was totally involved with his family and stuff, and he still had the vision of seeing his daughter up on the throne of balance, I guess you can call it. That's what they called it. Yes. And seeing Darth Krayt next to her, do you think he still would have fallen? Now, see, that's the question there. That's one of the root reasons why he went down the path he did. The future is not set, and and Yoda talks about that. What you see is does not always come to pass. Right. Exactly. And that's the thing that I think Disney Star Wars keeps on forgetting is like especially with Luke igniting the saber against Ben Solo, is that he's seen a future, but he should have known the future is always in motion, that you're always going to see variances of the future, but you don't know which one's going to fruition. That's right. And Yoda told him that before he rushed off to Cloud City. That's such a, if you had to say, what is one thing, you can only hate one thing in Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
It's that pervy, creepy ass scene Rian Johnson filmed with pervy Jake Skywalker perving on his nephew.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So, and that's one thing that I always say. And like you have to, what came before you have to adhere to. You have to show reasons why that person who basically learned that lesson in their hero's journey, I guess you could say, or in their journey in becoming a Jedi. Why did he go back? Why did he regress from it? When he should be this like 20 something years where he should be more wizened to those scenarios, right? And learn to overcome fear, not act on fear. Because that's what Jedi practice for, is not acting on fear.
That's right. And
You know?
you get these promotional images of him carrying around Rey on his back and
Mhm.
her pointing, you know, and all this stuff that is supposed to be akin to Luke and Yoda training. He's the Yoda now.
Mhm.
And I was so excited when she at the end of episode 7, when she's climbing those stairs.
Mhm.
I was like, he's going to have her ass running up those stairs with pails of water on her shoulders, like on a stick, you know? He's going to be training her to be a Jedi.
Yeah. Mhm.
And we were completely robbed of this. Her climbing the steps to talk to the Shaolin master of
Yeah.
Kung Fu. Train me, Obi-Wan, you know? And we don't get any of that.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's a crime.
Right. And I think we're still kind of like feeling the scars, the pain from that, you know, because we already seen stuff set up, you know, even if they didn't fully go with anything in the EU, which I really didn't expect at all. At least they would stay true to the character arc. They say, okay, this is how they, you know, had Luke in the EU. So let's go ahead and keep that character trait, but then build our own story around that. That would have made sense instead of just totally regressing him and still calling him master, you know, and all that stuff. But let's go ahead and get back into the original EU. So have you played any of the games? And if you did, which is your favorite game?
I've got all of the games you can imagine. I've got Nintendo games. I've got Super Star Wars, Super Empire. I've got the X-Wing games. I've got Nintendo GameCube, Rogue Squadron games. I've got KOTOR. I've got everything. Force Unleashed. You name it. I love Star Wars. I'm the guy that loved keeping Star Wars alive when there wasn't anything around keeping it alive besides games and books.
Right. Right.
If I had to pick one, it's gonna be KOTOR. I mean, it was a revolution of, we've got this whole other side of Star Wars now. We don't just have the Star Wars we know. We don't have the Star Wars after Return of the Jedi. We've got a whole nother era of badassery that has all these awesome characters and all these awesome people in it. That we get to enjoy.
3,000 years, you know, like you're going back in time. And so you're stepping away from the overall, I guess you could say, like people coin now, Skywalker story, which basically Skywalkers are the root of it. But we go all the way back into Jedi Sith history, you know, before the PT and all this stuff. And you get to see, you know, the Jedi, how they were before the PT and stuff, and what characters were involved and the state of the galaxy during that time. And so it gives a fresh story that's still coherent to the overall history. And I think that's why people love it, because it stepped away from the overall stories, like the main story, but it still was tied to it, and it still was very coherent to it.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful era. If anybody out there hasn't, you know, I know Revan, dig into the lore of this, because the Jedi Sith wars are absolutely insane. How the rule of two happens, why the rule of two happens, how the Sith figure out, guess what? The more of us there are, the more we're sharing power with them. We're not going to take out the Jedi with brute force. It's not even numbers that are going to do the job. We have to be very sneaky, underhanded, and control everything from the shadows if we want to take down the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they do. And it's beautiful. All of it is beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing, that I loved about this is that George was so much even though he wasn't an author, right? He did have like help ghostwrite maybe a book or two, but he was still involved, especially when it was dealt with his main characters and the main story and the whys, right? And so the Rule of Two, he was really involved in with, the story and how it came to be. He played a lot with the Sith history as well. And so what we see fruition in the EU with the Sith and stuff was really under George's tutelage. And so I think that's why it makes sense when you read back in the Darth Bane trilogy, all the way to Darth Plagueis, and then into the PT, like the movies and the other novels surrounding, you get a sense of coherency in the story and an evolution. And I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's all connected together. It all is flowing like the Force.
Yeah.
I forget who. There was one of the masters that talked about the Force like a river, and if the Force is the river, the bedrock of the Force is the light side, where the shore on the end is the dark side, or it's flipped around. I can't remember which, but the way they explained it was everything has to connect and flow like a river.
Right.
And that's the way Star Wars had to do it too. That's the way the EU did it. That's why everyone loves the EU, because it's all ebbs and flows in a river and connects, and it all makes sense. It's not mishmash, jumbled. Oh, well, we had one group do this, and we had this other group that hates this other group do this, and they were all scissoring by noon. It's like the writer's room. Come on, you have to work together. You can't just you can't just make it up as you go along. You have to work together. Oh, dinosaurs. That's a great idea.
Yeah, because it like the CC Rook and stuff like that, And so, and there were some species that were like reptilian, and I get it. You have to be imaginative when you're building a galaxy as large as Star Wars galaxy, right? And so you're going to have characters that resemble different type of like things we may see. We have the CC Rook that look like dinosaurs basically, and then you have like Bothans that look like goats or whatever. I don't know. And I never, people call dogs goats or whatever, but you have to get imaginative. Like even Admiral Akbar, calamari, looking like a fish. And I think that's incredibly creative, because we are not, and I'm gonna go into this esoteric thing now. I myself, and this just mean how I was raised, in my culture, we believe that we came from the stars, and when we die, we're going to go back to the stars. And the Milky Way is the Chanku Wakan, which basically is the holy road or the sacred road back to the spirit world, right? And so we believe that we are not the only ones to exist in this whole entire universe. We are not that special. And we may not never see another species from a different planet in our lifetime or even in future generations. But, I believe like, just like, like there's like X-Files, there's more out there, or whatever, I paraphrase there. But, so I believe that. And that's why I love Star Wars, is because it gives us a view of like, okay, so this galaxy is rich in human or in life, in different species and stuff, and how they respond and correlate with each other is magnificent. So
just like these stories are.
Exactly.
It's just like these stories are. These stories, we grew up on these stories. We grew up on the EU, and a lot of people were upset when Disney was like, the EU just doesn't exist anymore. No, it will always exist, because it's going to exist for us. I watched Luke Skywalker grow into be the Grand Master of the Jedi Order. I watched him go from a farm boy to a Jedi Master, to a Jedi Grand Master who was married, who had a child. Those are the stories that I love. And they're always going to be there. Disney cannot remove them.
No, they may change the lore to fit their lore. Because that's what they wanted. They wanted a total reboot. Right? So they may invent their new Star Wars, but we still have the classical stuff. And the EU has kept Star Wars alive between the movies and after the movies, because we had brilliant writers, like, even Dave Wolverton, and rest in peace, Dave Wolverton. He gave us the Dathomir planet and the death, the wishes of Dathomir and all of that. So he opened up the galaxy even wider just with the story of courtship of Princess Leia. And, so I commend him for that. I've seen people have mixed reviews. If you're a real huge Han and Leia fan, sometimes that will turn you off for how Han reacted towards Leia deciding to make a political decision on marrying just for, the establishment of the New Republic, and how Han had to really step in and take control, basically. And whatever. And I don't know if you read that story. Have you?
I do. I have it. I've read it. It's actually one of my hardbacks that got ruined. And it got stuck in a storage closet of all things. And when I found it, it was almost black. It was almost completely
that's
black.
Right. We did talk about that. That's right. And I remember. Wow.
That is one of the books I had to get back. I actually found a really nice library hardback that had, the laminated cover and all that. I was able to get it back, but
that's so
yes. As far as the books go, I do. As far as the books and the games go, I do. There are people that have much more, they're into the toys. I've got one lightsaber. It is a custom made Obi-Wan Kenobi lightsaber from episode 2, and my books and my games. And that's pretty much all the Star Wars stuff I've got. I used to have a whole wall of posters and all kinds of some other little things, but pretty much all I have now is my books, which I'll never get rid of, my games, my lightsaber that I absolutely adore. And yeah, that's the stuff I kept. A lot of people got rid of all their Star Wars stuff when Disney did what they did. I will never let go of those books, though, ever.
Stig, Teresa and Perpy, throw oranges like me, like you did on Naboo. Good morning, Stig. And he's my coffee chat co-host. And again, like I said, we'll be going over Blood Ties, still reviewing the classic epic story of Boba Fett. So join us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And it's a delight to be with you guys here. So who is your favorite character in the EU and why? I know you had a hard time picking.
Man, there's so many good characters in the EU. I'd still say Mara Jade because I loved her. It killed me. It absolutely killed me when Lumia got blamed for it, but it was Jason. And that's the thing. She went and confronted her nephew. She knew her nephew was up to some nefarious shit. Lumia gets blamed for it, and then Luke goes and kills Lumia, thinking, I have revenged my wife, the mother of my son. I have had my revenge. And then Ben's like, Dad, Lumia wasn't the one who killed her. It was Jason.
Yeah, there we go. X-Files, the truth is out there. Sorry, go ahead, go.
It's just, I love Mara. Now, you could ask me a couple of weeks from now, who's your favorite EU character? And I could say something else. I might say Revan. I might say Ben. Who knows? I really liked Paleon, Grand Admiral Paleon. By the time Mara dies, Paleon is the Grand Admiral of the Imperial Remnant. He went from being the Thrawn's second in command to ruling the Imperial Remnant, and no one screws with him because everyone knows he was Thrawn's protege, and he will kick your ass and take your name if you mess with him.
Right.
So it's stuff like that. I loved that character, and he's not a huge character. He's like a B, but I still I still love it. So but yeah, Mara was, her story really touched me because she goes from hating Luke and wanting to kill Luke to maybe he has something that I didn't see before, and she has a respect for him. Then she's like, maybe he can train me to use this power that I've lost. And then they fall in love, and she winds up falling in love with him and him with her. And they have this beautiful romance, and they fight side by side, back to back. They're warriors through and through, both of them. And she ends up with his old lightsaber. She ends up with his blue lightsaber from Empire Strikes Back, the one he lost in Cloud City. It's things like that. That's just like that. This story was so thought out and so wonderful. And to lose her in that story, that was tough. That was hard. It was hard to keep reading. Losing Chewie too. I know a lot of people talk about Chewie. That Chewie's death really blew them away. He died saving Han's son.
Right.
That is
He died
beautiful.
saving them. Yes, and that was beautiful. Like he honored his Wookiee ways, his
Life debt. Yes. His life debt to Han. That I could totally accept. It upset me, but I could accept it. Mara getting killed by Jason, that hurt.
Right.
That really hurt. It was like you died trying to turn him back, and he still doesn't get it. He still doesn't change. He still doesn't get it.
Mm-mm. And did you throw your book when that happened?
No. I was upset. I was emotional. I was upset, but I didn't throw my book. Even though I loved Mara that much. It was Luke. I was like, no, you're not gonna. I just lost Mara. You're not taking Luke from me too.
But okay, so this is such the pitiful part. Once he realized he was in his X-Wing, once he realized that he lost Mara, and just like how he reacted, and then later on he makes it to the palace, Tennakal's palace, and he's sitting on that couch, and how he's like basically almost like dead to the world and with emotion, like overcome with emotion, and how Jaina just like goes down and just hugs herself against him and stays with him. And I was like, if that's a scene of mourning, of recognizing a death, that is one of the best ones.
Yeah.
And it just makes me so sad for Disney Star Wars fans that they didn't get that honoring for Luke with
or Han.
Mm-hmm. Like especially, and then to not even recognize Chewie after Han's death. That was such a disconnect. And they have the books there, they have the stories there, and how to do that. Even when Admiral Akbar passed away, they did take a few moments for the passing. There was nothing they can do. They couldn't go and rush and be by, for the world and for his family and stuff like that, because they were in the middle of such an intense war with the Vong. So there's so many compelling stories that has the arcs of mourning and loss and overcoming, and even with Luke with his, becoming Grand Master, but still faltering and still almost falling to the dark side, like when he went and sought revenge with Lumaya.
Yeah.
And then he realized that he's teetering, so he can't go after Jason, or he will turn. That is taking control of the situation.
Yep. And realizing
he was still active with the council. He didn't run and hide.
And realizing your faults, and that you need to have a wider point of view than just your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, exactly. And Chaos Man, that's exactly what I was saying. So, and just to see that, and feel that, and it's very touching. So I do have a quiz for you.
Awesome.
And this will go into Mara Jade. Okay. Who did Mara Jade train with as the Emperor's assassin? So who did she train with when she was when she was doing her training as the Emperor's assassin?
Who trained her?
Or who did she train with?
Like who trained her to be a hand?
Well, yeah, like one of her training, like she did train with some individuals, like not an individual name, but the group of people.
Oh wow, you've got
All right.
Wow.
So you want me to share?
Sure. Yeah.
She did train with the Imperial Guards.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You're expecting a name or
that's what.
Or something.
Yes, it was the Imperial Royal Guards. Yes. No, you're. And I'm thinking man, who are the people? Like the names of people? No. Okay. No. Yes. Absolutely.
I said it. We get stumped on quizzes. Like we always feel like when we get quizzed, we're thinking broader than we're supposed to. Yeah. So there's one, and I have another one for you now. What age did Mara become the Emperor's hand? So how old was she when she became the Emperor's hand?
Oh wow. I just throwing a guess out there. 16.
Almost 14.
14. Mm-hmm. 14. I knew it was right in there somewhere. I'm sitting there going back and forth between 14 and 16. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like I said, I like to do these little, and it's just for the fun. It's just to see. And some people like get them right. Some people don't. And that's fine. It's just for the fun of it. All right. So what did you think of the Plagueis and the Rule of Two? I know we kind of went over that some more. So what did you think about Plagueis novel in general and the Rule of Two during that time as we started seeing it evolve into, Palpatine's era?
Okay. So you find out, I think rather quickly, I think it's within the first 3 or 4 chapters, that Plagueis's master had other apprentices. It wasn't just him. And if you can train an apprentice and that apprentice is powerful enough to kill your current apprentice, that's perfectly fine. One of them is going down. So it stays with 2, even though you're training more than one person. Like in a way, Palpatine in the prequels, yes, Dooku is there as a Sith Lord. But what Palpatine's really doing is training Anakin to take his place and take him out. And he does that when he's like, do it. He take him out. And Anakin defeats him, thus leading the way to him taking Dooku's place as Vader.
Yeah.
So there can be more than 2. And that's the wonderful thing about this is you can train more than one apprentice and train that apprentice to kill the other apprentice. And whoever wins, you're still in the win because you're still the master and you've got an apprentice. I love that book. I think the best part of that book, though, is when Plagueis goes to Naboo for the first time, because the whole planet freezes over. There's this winter storm like no other winter storm has ever happened on Naboo, and they talk about the planet, the rivers freeze, and there's like a volcano that's going off, and the stuff you don't think about when you think about Naboo. Right before Plagueis meets Palpatine.
Yeah.
This is the lead up to Plagueis meeting Palpatine for the first time. The whole planet freezes over.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, man, I love the way they describe that. I love the way they describe that in that book because it's like destiny. We're gearing up for the introduction of Palpatine to the ways of the Sith, and the whole planet freezes. If that's not a foretelling, a foreshadowing of what's about to happen, I don't know what is. It's beautiful.
Correct. And then Soul Assassin just made me laugh when you were. I wasn't laughing at you, but giggling at you. He says, "Don't underestimate OG Loki. She'll get you with a question."
Yes, she will.
I prepare for that, and like I said, the quiz is just for the fun of it, and just to make you think more. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should go revisit that time frame to see exactly what that was about, and it's just to just create conversation around it as well. And then so basically, Stig says several apprentices are being trained in the dark side, but only one of them end up getting the advanced Sith training. Right. And then so they have that stuff there, and so with Plagueis and stuff, let's see here. We got to see, more what was going on. So the book, if no one has read it yet, or if some of you guys in the chat hasn't read it yet, you're going back in time and you're moving forward. And it goes and even goes in into the Phantom Menace, because by time Palpatine kills Plagueis, it's within the movie time frame.
Yep.
Even though we didn't get to see it. So the novels do tie into the movies. The novels do go in continuity with the movies, even if they're like 10 years before or after. There's some reference or there's some continuity ties, and it doesn't interfere or retcon the movies. They're not supposed to. And so that's what makes it beautiful. So we get to understand the Rule of Two and how it evolved. And then later down the line, once we get into Legacy of the Force era, we start seeing the Rule of Two fully changing a lot. And once we get to Darth Krayt, it becomes the one, what's it called? It's called the one Rule of One, not Rule of One, but the one Sith. There we go.
One Sith, yeah.
hmm And that's where, so it's interesting to see if you're very interested in the Sith story and how they evolved to make sure that they survive. Because the reason the rule tool came apart or came together was because they were destroying each other from the inside. And that's where Bane seen what he's seen, and then he created the rule of two to make sure the Sith survive.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a compelling story, which was changed by Disney as well. So there we go. Another retcon, another reboot into that. And then Stig has a question for you. Have you read Darth Maul, Shadowhunter, Loki?
I have it on my bookshelf. I have
Okay.
not read it yet.
Okay.
So I've got it. It's sitting on my bookshelf, but I haven't read it yet. I don't.
Okay.
A lot of the stuff like hearing about Darth Maul in Plagueis, like you find out that this one of the Dathomir women give Palpatine Darth Maul as a baby. So this woman from Dathomir has Darth Maul as a baby and gives it to, his name is Maul, gives it to Palpatine when it's like a little tiny baby. And you're like, holy shit, that's okay. So that's like a little bit of the origin story. Handsome Plagueis, thank you, Stig. I did not know that. Definitely. I will start on it as soon as I'm done with the one I'm reading now.
Okay, yeah, he's like, I knew he was going to say that. Read it now. Read it. Yeah, he's giving you an assignment. And then now Soul Assassin now says, rule of force dyads. Yeah, this dyad thing, I think the most beautiful force bond, besides it being twin force bond, like with Jaina and Jason Solo, is the force bond between Luke and Mara. And they changed this force bond into dyads and turned it into something so completely different, in the new lore, which I was turned off with that as well. I like the force bonds where they're connected, they understand each other. However, they don't lose their power if one person dies.
Yes.
So they and so I think that, like Mara and Luke's connection through the force and with each other with love was such a beautiful thing. And it kind of changed the course on like how to look at Jedi when it comes to love and relationships versus attachment. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but I think it's in Fury, Legacy of the Force novel, where Ben Skywalker snaps his father out of his decrippling attachment after Mara dies.
Yep.
And that was so phenomenal. It gives you a better perspective on what attachment really is when it comes to Jedi, how it can cripple, and what love and relationship should be for a Jedi.
And Anakin briefly touches on that in episode 2 when he says we are encouraged to love,
right?
We are encouraged to care. But the Jedi decided, well, because it could have a negative effect, we're just not going to let it happen most of the time. I think that was a big mistake, and so did Luke. Luke thought that was a big mistake too, and said, we're not going to do that with the New Order. We're going to let people have relationships, and we're going to let people have families, and it makes us stronger than the old guard. Right.
And I think because of maybe the clouding and like being, because have you read the Revenge of the Sith novelization?
Yes.
Okay, so the very last chapter called New Jedi Order gives huge perspective from Yoda of where he thought the Sith were gone, right? So he was just continuing to train the Jedi as they were being trained 1,000 years ago. And he realized that the Sith weren't gone, that the Sith studied them, and that they evolved. And he realized because they didn't evolve the Jedi, that was one of their downfalls.
Yep. The Jedi stagnated. They were stagnant. There was no real growth. We're teaching the same lessons we've taught for the last 1,000 years. We didn't adapt to them while they were constantly adapting to us.
Correct. And so then he realizes that Luke, and even with Leia, but mostly Luke, will be the one to bring about the new Jedi Order and the changes and the evolution that they need to keep evolving as a Jedi Order. And I thought that was brilliant because the chapter is New Jedi Order, right? And it refers back to like the stagnation that the old Jedi were in, thinking that the Sith were gone and not really preparing for what ifs and evolving and staying, I guess you could say, dogmatic in some of the ways, to now realizing, okay, we get to have a brand new fresh start with Luke Skywalker and how he's going to come about and change everything and evolve them and stuff. And I thought that was really, really brilliant. We got to see, like Yoda realizing that failure, right? And we got to see the hope of a future with, from Yoda as well. And, Matthew, was it Matthew Stover? I guess. Yeah. He is the one that met with George in creating that book. So he got to stay the whole day with George, and they discussed the premise of that book. They discussed, he used the scripts that weren't fully used or couldn't be used or were taken out from the movies, because books give you a larger picture of the movie, right? Because you can't put everything in the book from the book in the movie, right? And so we got to see all of that. We got to see, like scenes and more to the picture when it came to the novelization versus the movie. So what'd you think about the novel?
I thought it was good. It tackles some of the stuff that you didn't, like you said, that you didn't get to know about. There's stuff that was happening before the movie. I mean, because that movie, you go right into that battle above Coruscant. Oh, the Palpatine's been kidnapped. You get to find more about that. The lead up to that. There's so much more in that book than you get in the movie. But we all knew going into that. I remember coming out of the theater, seeing that opening night, and they sold out 33 screens.
Right.
That night.
Here where I live at too. It was like sold out. It was hard to get a ticket. It was hard to get a ticket.
I was there for like 2 days. We camped out. We were there for 2 days. It was insane. And I remember coming out, and this little girl that was dressed up like Leia was being carried out of the theater by her dad. And she said, "Daddy, why did Anakin do all those mean things?" And he says, "Because, sweetheart, he's Darth Vader." And she's like, "The guy in the mask?" And he goes, "Yes." And it's like, we all knew that was coming.
Yeah.
We all knew that was coming, and we all knew what this was leading up to. And like that movie, hate that movie, like the prequels, hate the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
We all knew that was coming.
Right.
And to read it is like another journey down a path we didn't know we had access to.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But we all know where it's leading. We all know what's going to happen. And we all know who's going to do some really evil things before to kind of like make that bridge into becoming Darth Vader. Mm-hmm. How does this little kid, I love pod racing. How does this little kid, are you an angel, become the most terrible person in the galaxy?
Right. And the most epic villain in movie history.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, stick around and find out, because it's one hell of a ride.
Right. Okay. Speaking of villains, maybe beside Vader, who is your favorite Star Wars villain and why?
Oh man.
That's hard to choose too. So
it's gotta be Palpatine before Disney messed with him. I'm not talking about black lipstick emo Palpatine.
Wow, that's a new perspective. I never heard someone call him an emo Palpatine, but go on.
Yeah, in the Disney emo Palpatine, but just the Palpatine, the original Palpatine in Empire. If he could be turned, he would be a valuable ally. He was evil and pure evil, pure sinister evil. He didn't billow his cape like Vader. He walked in and, oh, good, everything is proceeding according to my plan. Right. And you're like, damn. Mm-hmm. And Palpatine in the prequels, oh, hello. Oh, Master Jedi, hello. And you're like, this evil bastard. And you know he's evil. I remember watching Phantom Menace, and my dad like leaned over and going, is that the Emperor? I'm like, yeah. He goes, he's too nice to be the Emperor. I'm like, no, that's the Emperor. That's the same actor that played the Emperor too.
Mhm.
Maybe one of you could help. Maybe if we went to Master Kenobi and asked for help. This guy is a manipulative son of a bitch.
Right. Brilliant. Brilliant. He didn't get where he was being a nice guy. That was just a mask.
Yeah, and that's the difference between a Jedi that's turned to the dark side and someone that is raised as a Sith. Yeah, Vader's badass. Vader's like, Jew, but he was a Jedi first. And there's a difference between a Jedi that turned evil and someone that was brought up to be a Sith Lord. Palpatine killed his parents. Palpatine took over his...
Didn't he space him?
Yeah, he spaced him.
Right.
And you're like, this guy is evil. He is evil, and he is brought up evil. He is trained to be evil. 10 years as an apprentice, because that's just the way it is. You're gonna be an apprentice for 10 galactic standard years. You're never gonna get beyond that in those 10 years. So don't even try. Before I even really start teaching you the true secrets of the Sith, you've got to get past my test for the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was so brilliantly done. Like I still think, like, you have the debate about the PT. People are like, oh, people didn't like the PT when it first came out, blah, 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 blah. Well, where I lived at, it was well received where I lived at, and the majority of people that I talked to. But there are people that are going to like something. There are going to be people that hate something, right? And I think George really was brilliant with Palpatine. Like, that was one of his most brilliant, like, characters that he's ever created. Besides Luke Skywalker and using the classical tropes for him, right? But still making him, the reluctant hero kind of person that fails and has to be saved all the time. That even goes into the EU a lot too, right? But with Palpatine, he really, really did well by him, by making him look like this, like, I wouldn't say a naive politician, but this politician that looked like he had the heart for his planet and for the galaxy, which in really his heart was basically about his pride and about ruling and having power.
He set up the Chancellor before him. He set him up to be thrown out. I believe it was Chancellor Valorum. We're going to get Chancellor Valorum thrown out of office, and I'm going to take his place, and I'm going to be the understanding ruler. I'm going to be the one people come to for help and advice, and I'm the last person in the galaxy that would vote for an army for us to raise an army. But I'm going to tell you all, we really need it because they have the droids, and they're going to take us all. We have to protect we have to protect the Republic. It's all for the Republic. Yeah. And you brought up the prequels really, really quick. I know this would be like a little side story here. I knew a girl that absolutely hated Jar Jar Binks. Okay. All they did was talk shit. Oh, Jar Jar Binks, like it's Star Wars. Da, 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 da. Guess what? This woman had never watched the original 3 movies. Oh. She had never watched the prequels. She had jumped on this Star Wars hate Jar Jar bandwagon and then was introduced to Star Wars by me. Watch the originals, then watch the prequels, as you're supposed to. 4, 5, and 6, and then 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
And suddenly Jar Jar was okay. Suddenly Jar Jar was okay, and Jar Jar was this, oh my God, Jar Jar got the clone army created, and oh, Jar Jar is the reason the Empire exists, and yada yada yada. And it's like they never even watched Star Wars. And this is what we're dealing with now with Disney. People never watch Star Wars, and they say, you just hate this. They never took the time to really invest, put time in and invest in the stories of the original or the EU.
Yeah, that, like I say, it's even with the EU, most of it's bad. I hate it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, have you read anything other than maybe the story you read that probably was like in Infinities or one of the less favored books to say and come to that conclusion, kind of deal. So we have a lot of that. We do. And I think it's really disingenuous and dishonest for someone to do that. Once they start getting into it and realize, okay, well, maybe I was wrong. Yeah, there are bad stories. There are stories I may not like. We may not agree on what we like overall in the lore. Like if we sat down and compared what we liked, we probably will agree on some things and not agree on others. That's just how it is. We all have our interests and characters we like, story plots we like, what have you. That's just normal in the fandom, right? But to go out and say, I hate this character, but not read or watch anything regarding the lore, or even the storyline and not read or watch anything with it, that's very disingenuous.
Yep, just because it's great to hate on a character.
Yeah, popular. It's a popular thing, and I want to be with the cool kids.
Yep.
But that's the thing is, it's like us geeks or nerds or whatever you want to classify us in the past, people didn't like the fact that we geeked out on Star Wars. In fact, that was a less popular thing growing up, right? Especially for a girl. And but now it's cool.
I got asked in high school why I never had lunch in the cafeteria. I was always outside. I was always outside under a tree reading a book, most likely a Star Wars book. And I had my lunch outside, and that's how I spent my lunch. I never spent my lunch inside with people in high school. In junior high, it was different. But in high school, I'd go outside and I'd read a book, have my lunch, hear the bell, go inside and go to class.
Mm-hmm. You're like, I have my escapism right there, because you're going into real life things and topics and studying and education. So I understand. You're like, okay, I want to escape from this. I want to escape from the bullshit from the high schoolers and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right. So now, what is your favorite Star Wars species and why?
Oh wow. Damn. That is a good question. Probably
it's got asked anybody this in the last ones, and I'm like, you know what? I haven't, so I'm gonna start with Loki. So here we go.
It's definitely not the Hutts. The Buta Toyo Solo. No, it's not the Hutts. Probably the Wookiees. It's probably the Wookiees. Learning about the Wookiees in other books, learning what motivates them, the Keswick, their homeworld, finding out about that they were kind of like evolved artificially. You kind of find out in the Old Republic that maybe Keswick was toyed with genetically. They genetically messed with the species a little bit. And they were raised up beyond just being furry animals. Yeah. I love the Wookiees. I love Chewie. Chewie was me. If I could pick anybody to be in Star Wars, and people are like, why don't you be Han, or why can't you be Luke Skywalker? I want to be with Chewie because I want to hang out with all those people. Yeah. Chewie was in with everybody. Chewie was in with Chewie flew around with Han on the Falcon. He was the co-pilot on the Falcon. He hung out with Luke. He got to do everything with everybody. That's who I'd want to be, is Chewie, because he was in the middle of all of it. And I don't want to be Han. I don't want to be Luke. I want to be the people hanging around Han and Luke. I want to get to hang and ask questions and do all that cool shit and rip droids' arms out of their sockets when they lose to whatever game they were playing.
Wookiees demand, like, just with their presence, that was like, they demanded respect, right? Because you don't bullshit with a Wookiee because they can pull your limb off of you, right?
That's right.
And they were very protective of their loved ones and the people that they have a life debt to, right? And so you don't want to mess with those kind of people. And like with Shadows of the Empire, when Leia was in the cantina waiting for what's her name, the cyborg lady, Viri or whatever her name is, for Zejor, she's sitting there just with Wookiee waiting for Lando to show up, with Chewie waiting for Lando to show up. And of course you have all these guys hitting on her because it's Leia. Why not? She's gorgeous. And so, people would try to, look at her and stuff. And here you have this big ass furry Wookiee sitting with you. And so they're still keeping their composure in a way, whatever. And then finally Lando comes and, taps her from behind, and she's like, oh God, what, someone's that bold, basically, and find out it was Lando or whatever. But yeah, so I'll get it. They demand respect. They're fun characters. They're loyal. and all that. And so I get what your perspective on that is. So for Chewie. Yeah, and Chewie kept it real, never was scared to tell it like it is. Right. He even defended his loved ones from a falling moon.
That's right.
And he basically fulfilled his life debt in that instant. And I think that was the bravest thing and the most badass thing Chewie could have ever done. People do mock it, which I don't understand. I'm like, do you understand the life debt for Wookiees and Chewie's character?
Yeah, just think back to Empire. It's another beautiful scene in the Empire. Chewie is ready to kill every stormtrooper in Cloud City to save Han, and Han knows he's going to die. I'm going to lose Chewie because he's going to throw a fit and he died. And he tells him, the princess, you have to take care of the princess. You have to get the princess out of here. Do not worry about me. Worry about the princess. And Chewie understands that and is like, okay, fine.
Yeah, I need to listen because I have a life debt to Han. So I need to listen to him and honor him. Just imagine if he didn't listen. Boba Fett would have had another Wookiee braid counted for him.
That's right.
Boba Fett would have took him out. He was right there. He would have taken that and braided it and added to his collection. In fact, my image that I'm doing does have the Wookiee braids on them, on Boba. So I'm going to keep it on there. I'm keeping everything authentic, Ian. I'm thinking about writing Slave 1 next to the ship somehow. Because I rebel like that. And then Shane Owen says he went out like a boss. Yes, he did. Chewie did go out like a boss. Soul Assassin, well, the channels who made fun of Chewie's death are now irrelevant. Cough, cough, collider, cough. Yeah, I think that was a disservice. And I think maybe there's this misunderstanding with that. I really think that was an epic way for Chewie to go out with the story behind the Vong and how they use, biological stuff like for warfare. They use basically living things to exist, living ships, all of that, and I think that was a brilliant way and to tell Chewie's story and end his story. So yeah, but that's just me, so, and I get it. Wookiees are awesome. What do you think about Lobaka since we're on the topic of Wookiees?
Lobaka is it's his brother, right?
Lobaka is his nephew, and he's the one, like, throughout time, there was hardly any Wookiees that were Jedi because of their tempers that they can have.
Yes. Okay. So the Wookiee Jedi. Yes. The one that trained with Luke. Yeah. Absolutely. I have absolutely no problem with that. Wookiees are part of that galaxy, and almost every living thing has the chance to earn the ability to learn to use the Force. Yes, there's midichlorians. Originally Lucas talked about it like Kung Fu. Oh, you learn Kung Fu, like, and become a master of Kung Fu. Not everybody can become a master, and blah, 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 blah. And then he changed to midichlorians and whatever. I absolutely love the idea of a Wookiee Jedi. And they've used that. They've gone back and they've used that. And Disney's using that now. And but no, I had absolutely no problem with him doing that. I thought that was great.
Yeah, so Lobaka is a wonderful character as well. And we don't get much, because when we get further into the post Return of the Jedi era, closer to Legacy, then we start, we don't get conclusions, and we don't get a conclusion with Jaina Solo and Ben Skywalker earning to be the next generation, like how we have deal with generations and Jagged Fowl and all that, so we won't get those closures. We won't get the bridging between the Legacy or Fate of the Jedi and Legacy comics as well. And that's a disservice. One thing I didn't really expect Disney, Star Wars, or Disney Lucasfilm to continue EU stories, like, and put them in their stories and make movies and stuff. But what I was hoping they would have done was make a separate timeline so they continue the original Star Wars and finish off some of the stories for us, and then maybe conclude it there while they reboot it and create their own stories. and I would have been fine. It's so that was such a disservice and a disconnect to overall fans when they decided to make the EU non-canon. And and then we start getting people mocking and hating, people who love the EU and stuff. And it's just a, like I said, it's just so sad the state of Star Wars is in right now, and that's why this channel's here, to keep it in front of people so they can love it, so they can embrace it, so they can talk about it like we are here. So what is your favorite Star Wars vehicle and why?
Oh man.
Now, vehicle's broad, right? So you could pick a starfighter, you could pick a freighter or whatever, so, and you could pick a few of them, because like I said, vehicle, I didn't say, like starfighter or anything like that, so.
It's got to be a Star Destroyer.
Okay.
I absolutely love the Star Destroyers. They're they're terrifying. You've got this ship coming at you, and they're fast. They can't turn on a dime, but they are fast. You don't think that a big ship like that would be as fast as they are you start looking at tech manuals, you'd be like, damn, this thing can move at light speed, it can move at sublight, it can chase the Falcon, and the Falcon is fast. And it can keep up with the Falcon. So Han's real only gambit to get away from something like that is going to light speed, because the Falcon can outrun damn near everything else at light speed.
Yeah.
But having a Star Destroyer chase after you, that's some serious crap. Combined power, they can level up, they can glass a planet. They've got what? 100,000 crew, stormtroopers. They've got AT-ATs. They've got mobile bases they can put down on planets. It is the workhorse of the Imperial fleet, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
So probably a Star Destroyer. I know a lot of people would be like, oh, an X-Wing or an A-Wing or, a TIE Fighter. But, I mean, you go big or go home. Star Destroyer.
You're like, go big or go home. And that's probably why you like the Wookiees, too.
Yeah.
Go big or go home. Yeah. And so I think that it was brilliant how Booster Tarek negotiated getting that Star Destroyer and then having it painted red.
Yes, a red Star Destroyer. Who doesn't want a red Star Destroyer?
Right. So I think that, and then having like a shopping, basically his own business combined with other business. So he's the smuggler, information or broker as well, and a place for other smugglers to come in, a place for people to come and gamble, shop, all of that. Brilliant.
All there.
Yeah, all there. And he turned it into his own mobile business.
That's a player. That's a player. You got your own Star Destroyer, man.
Yeah. And then speaking of Booster Tarek, let's go to Wedge and Tilly's. So did you read the story about how Wedge and Tilly's lost his family, and then how Booster Tarek basically raised him or took care of him for a time being? Yep.
And how Wedge was Empire. Wedge joined the Imperial Navy, and I think they stole like a cruiser. I know it wasn't a Star Destroyer, but they stole a cruiser they were on. They basically mutinied and gave that to the rebels. And that was like brilliant. You start learning about some of these characters. The Rogue novels, the Rogue One or the Rogue Squadron novels were absolutely brilliant. I love those. I love the fact that they have a former TIE Interceptor pilot as a member of Rogue Squadron. I mean, that's badass. Why does that guy have a black uniform? Oh, he used to be a TIE Interceptor pilot.
Oh yeah, that's what's his name? Taiku Salchu.
Yeah, the badass. I always loved that. I was like, okay, if I could be anybody in the story, that's who I'd want to be.
Exactly.
But why? Because he's the guy that was like, no, I was a badass TIE pilot. I was an eyeball pilot. And now I'm come over and I'm flying X-Wings with y'all.
Yeah, exactly. And I could show you how we maneuvered, what they're capable of, and how you can defeat them.
That's right.
Brilliant. And so Soul Assassin has a question for you. Which Star Wars era would you visit? First Loki, Old Republic, New Republic, Imperial era, Legacy era.
New Republic, because that is the era that I fell in love with. Reading about how the rebels were still dealing with the Empire, reading about Leia building the New Republic with Mon Mothma, eventually replacing Mon Mothma as the head of the New Republic. All those stories, Luke building his Jedi Academy, that was like, I lived in that. It was like that's where Star Wars was when I was like most excited about reading those books, was the New Republic era. So that's the first place I'd go.
Yeah, and the X-Wing series, like they are like, okay, so if you were like, okay, I need to step away from Jedi stories and those stories there, X-Wing series right there alone right there is such a great read, because you get more information on tactical, how like how they fought, what they were fighting for, the cease of Coruscant, and to turning it back to now the New Republic's capital, right?
Yeah, and Wedge got stuck on like janitor duty for a while. Wedge got stuck on cleanup duty on Coruscant, right, because Luke crashed a damn Star Destroyer onto the planet of Coruscant. And you're like, how is that possible? He used the Force to like touch down and do a belly landing in a Star Destroyer. Mm-hmm. How badass is that? And we get Jake.
And then we get Jake, who runs away from everything and wants the Jedi to end. And then Mr. Dystopian says Dash Rendar's Outrider. So I know people love the Outrider and Dash as well. And I get it. He's a, and then some people call him secondhand Han, like Han 2.0. But I get it. He is a classic smuggler with this classic, like, martyr kind of person who only thinks about money. And that's what Dash does, is all like, you didn't pay me to do the rest of the stuff, so I'm gone. So he had that kind of attitude. So I thought that was brilliant in its own way. Peter says, New Republic era EU books is what I lived for in the late 90s and the early 2000s too. So we
absolutely.
Have to let's see.
Absolutely.
Here. And then what is the Star Wars and janitor duty? No, but they do, like, what book was it? Like in they do the cleanup there, but also in the New Jedi Order, they're rebuilding Coruscant from the Vong transformation of the planet as well. And so they do have that. They do have like certain droids, and I think they kind of keep in continuity with these construction droids that we see from the New Republic era to the New Jedi Order era.
They kind of didn't know what to do with Wedge after the war was over. It was like, what are they going to do with him? And then like he's on cleanup duty on Coruscant, running like a rejuvenation of the planet where they're taking out old stuff and replacing it with new buildings. And then he's running like cargo. Yeah. He's running cargo for the Republic in the Jedi Academy trilogy until they're like, okay, we're going to set you up with a new rogue squadron. We're going to send you out on missions to take out the remnant, the Imperial remnant.
Yeah.
And that's when it's like, okay, Wedge is back to doing what Wedge does best, taking out eyeballs.
Yeah. And I think maybe that was a detachment there. Maybe not, because, we all know, and I'm just going to go into real life comparisons in a way. We all know that, when you go into the service, like Marines, you pick your job. So if you're not going into strictly infantry, then you also have trained in jobs. So like building, like, and stuff like that. And so we could even say maybe that was part of his duties and part of his help restoring the New Republic and getting things back to normal is, that. But, that's never eluded on. So like I said, I can only compare with real life, which basically Star Wars isn't real life, So that's the only thing I could think about with that. But I wasn't too off about that when it came to Wedge. It kind of shared with us his loyalty and his volunteer services for, if you could say that, to recreate or rebuilding the Republic, and so, I mean, it is what it is, and I understand people who don't maybe or see it kind of off for Wedge to do that, maybe because I come from a military family, and I know that, in the services, you do have other jobs that you're trained in besides, for combat and stuff like that. So Yeah, just like the Jedi Order. You know, they're healers, so their jobs is to help heal, but you still have to train to be a Jedi. You know, it's kind of like that. So, but that's just my perspective. That's just mine. And then Peter says, "Do you guys remember when one of the Wraith Squadron pilots impersonated an intelligence enhanced Ewok starfighter pilot? Star Wars has really made me laugh. Rarely made me laugh so hard. Yes, I do. I mean, there's some golden stories in there, and some humor that's well done." And the humor that is implied also goes with what's going on with the story. And I think that's the difference between then and now with the mama jokes that we have seen. So, yeah, in the new Star Wars. And all Marines are riflemen first. Right, they are riflemen first. You know, this is my gun. I forgot the saying. I'm not going to try to recite it. It's been a while. Yes. So I have another quiz for you. What novel did Luke Skywalker propose to Mara Jade?
Oh man. Was it I know it was after Hand of Thrawn, wasn't it?
It is, okay, hint. It is in part included in the Hand of Thrawn duology. So which one?
Oh, it's the second book. It's after Hand of Thrawn.
Yeah. So it's the Spectre of the Past, Visions of the Future. There
Visions of the Future. Yep.
Yeah. And I had it right here written down, and I had to didn't even look down. I'm like, which one is it again? It's the second one. But yeah. And that right there, I thought was very unique, because seeing that there's a possibility of death. He's all, despite, you know, would you be with me if we go to the Force as well? And so I thought that was very interesting. So what'd you think about that scene?
I loved when he proposed. I was just waiting. I think we were all waiting. Anyone that had been reading the books knew this is gonna be a wonderful relationship between the two, because she started off hating him. You took everything from me. You evil man. The Emperor was still giving her visions that him and Vader stood side by side and betrayed him and killed him. And it was like he was still using her to get back. He was still using her, even after all that time and her not having any power. He was still sending her little visions like Vader betrayed me and turned on me and Luke killed me. And it was that from that beginning of her hating him to them falling in love and getting married and having a child and all that. It's just my favorite. That's my second favorite relationship in Star Wars. First, obviously, being Han and Leia. I love Han and Leia. Okay. But that's, absolutely beautiful. I love it. I loved it.
Awesome. Well, it's been just a magnificent time chatting about the EU and Star Wars in general, like all of Star Wars with you, and getting to see it through your eyes and how much it's impacted you, how you grew up with it. So it's been quite phenomenal. So let us know where we can find you, what's going on with you throughout the rest of this week and next week.
I am over on Loki's Mornings of Mischief. I do a morning show Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. We talk about everything. There's not a topic we don't talk about. We talk about YouTube, thoughts and insights and how to build a channel every Wednesday. On Mondays, it's usually like what happened over the weekend. We have Taco Tuesdays, a lot of times Mexican Iron Man, if you know who that is. He guests a lot on Taco Tuesdays. Thursday is, oh my God, my mind's going. Thirsty Thursday. Usually it's whatever happened on Wednesday, because I talk about YouTube, where I used to do Women of the Fandom interviews on Wednesday. Now I do YouTube talk. So usually Thursday is whatever happened Wednesday. We talk about what happened Wednesday or Thursday morning. Fridays is what happened during the week with me and Dave Bob every Friday. That's a cool little team up. And we just try and have fun and talk about pulp culture. Sometimes we rant. Sometimes we have a great discussion with different panel members. But usually that is what I'm doing, is Mornings of Mischief. Thursday night, I have a wonderful show with the Deg Outlaw, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We talk horror, we talk mystery, all kinds of cool stuff. So check us out. Friday night, 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. I go live with Mexican Iron Man every single Friday, and we do the Loki's Late Show with Mexican Iron Man. And we usually have a bunch of people on, whether they're random people, whether they're people that have come in there before, Tom from Midnight's Edge, a bunch of people come on, hang out, talk, and we just try and have a good time and roll into Saturday. So usually it'll be 10 p.m. Central Standard Time to midnight, and then we'll cut out and enjoy the weekend.
Yeah. And then Soul Assassin says, "What do you mean used to do Women of the Fandom?"
Huh. I used to do a show called Women of the Fandom. He knows. Soul Assassin knows.
I know he knows. He's just making fun of how it sounded. And thank you, Dad Man Walking, for the $1.99 super chat. Great show and interview. Love the memories. Yes, and maybe one day we'll see some of you guys on here. Like I said, I'm not, I'm going through and and wanting to give everybody opportunity to shine with how they got started and their love of Star Wars. And that's what the show is all about, because we all see Star Wars in our own light, in our own perspective, and we all start at different points and different spots. There, people start with games, some start with just the movies, some start with just the novels, and so it's fun to get people's perspectives on how they got started in their love of Star Wars. And as for me, today is Babe the Menace, and so stay tuned for that. I forget, it's not on my channel though. I forget whose channel's on. I will tweet that out, so sorry for that. Tomorrow morning, coffee chat, and we are continuing on with the Boba Fett stories in love and honor of the original Boba Fett. As you know, they are purposely changing Boba Fett's arc, and we are seeing it develop through the new series, the Book of Boba Fett. So if you want to stay in touch and in tune with the original Boba Fett arc, come visit us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Bring your favorite beverage, bring your caff, and come in and join. We are continuing the Blood Ties comic books, Stig and I, and even Miss Martin Muses. This is her first introduction to his story arc in the EU. So stay tuned for that, as well as I have a new EU clip out. And right now my EU shorts are dedicated to Boba Fett stories. So, go watch that one as well. And as you've seen, it is officially confirmed that Slave One is now being called Fire Spray the Spider. So I am meeting people now with, still saying, oh, well, it was always called that, so it's not really a name change. Yes, it is, because they're deciding not to use the name Slave One.
Haven't you always wanted to take a ride in the YT 1300?
You mean the Falcon?
I mean the Falcon. Yeah. Well, it's not really called that. It's always been called the YT 1300.
Yes, and so Slave One forever, everyone. I know that, and so that's part of what my image, my painting that I'm doing is Boba Fett's true legacy and Slave One as well. So thank you guys again for coming in, and I greatly appreciate every single one of you, from subscribers down to channel members. And this is just an example of what the next painting is going to look like. This is just a idea sketch that I'm doing right now. I think I'm going to watercolor it in instead of ink it in. I'm not sure. So I'm just getting ideas on how I want him to stand and all that stuff. So that's the next offerings for channel member for a chance to win a copy of a painting is Boba Fett. So thank you guys again, and may the force be with you. And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning on Coffee Chat.
Another happy